Morning all, thanks for joining. So my name's Melissa, I've probably met most of you. I sit at vegetablesWA and I'm the Labour Scheme Facilitator. My job over the last few months has actually been to organise the seasonal worker program. However, of course, that's kind of come to a halt with our border closures. So I've been redeployed to work with the Department of Primary Industries and Workforce Development to actually assist all sources of labour. So we're now talking backpackers, Australians, students and everyone else. We are aware that there's more than likely going to be a shortage. At the moment, we haven't quite seen it, but we know coming up it's going to be our busy time towards spring. So I'm going to give a quick snapshot of what the figures we've got at the moment, what we know, which is obviously quite not an awful lot, but there is some information we do have out there. I'll then send it across to Jamie Michaels. Jamie's one of our largest strawberry growers. He's just gone through the recruitment process because he's in the middle of his season at the moment. So we want to get some live feedback from him in regards to how he's found the process during these, dare I say the word, unprecedented times. We'll then move across to Rob Hayes from Maydeck. Maydeck operate the Harvest Trail Information Service, and that's a potential opportunity that we can utilise for advertising and looking for workers. Then we'll go to Stuart and Emma Willis from Rural Enterprises. That's a new not new established business, but new office that's being set up in the southwest, and hopefully they'll be able to assist. And then across to Stuart Scott from Studium. And Stuart works with us at the Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development to also assist growers specifically in Western Australia. I did a quick bit of research this morning just on the Harvest Trail website, looking at the jobs. So currently in Western Australia, there's 48 jobs advertised in the farming sector, at farming agriculture. Now, about 26 out of those 48 was specifically for horticulture, agriculture, fishing. The rest were veterinarians and chemists. So 26 jobs were advertised in comparison to the territory, which were advertising about 550 jobs. And then in the Queensland, they were advertising 6,739 jobs. 6,000 of those were new jobs advertised for the grain industry. So other people are currently making a play for some workers as well. So we're not quite sure if they're going to get all 6,000. The big factor that we have noticed is we are seeing more and more jobs being advertised in the hospitality industry as well, and also the tourism. So that's also another factor that's taking workers away from the horticulture and agriculture sector, is all of the other industries opening up as well. In regards to the number of workers that we've got in Australia, again, everything's a little bit on the uncertain. What we do know is normally in Australia, we have around 145,000 backpackers. The number's currently sitting at around 85,000. So we've had a significant drop in the number of backpackers that are available. Our best estimates is that we've got about 10% of those numbers sit in WA at any one given time. And that's from what we've seen, but we really don't know all the specific numbers. So that gives us around 8,500. And of course, most of those will be sitting in hospitality and tourism. From the numbers that we researched at the end of March, we're going to need around 5,000 workers in September, October, November for all of horticulture. So as you can see, just based on those figures, it does look like we're going to have a labour shortage, and that's going to be our problem from there. As we know, we don't know exactly how many backpackers are in the state, and that's part of our concern. Obviously, we know that we can't get too many more across the border, but from what we've seen, some are leaving, and quite a number will probably be heading towards the territory for the mango season as well. And it's unlikely that they'll return to us after that. So although we're not going to be able to solve everything today, we understand, we want to try and make the discussion. It doesn't look like we're going to get any new labour until probably mid next year, based on the current numbers. So we're not only just talking about this season coming up, we are also potentially talking about not next season, but midway through next year before we start seeing a significant increase in backpacker numbers. That's all we've really got that we know about at the moment. So I'll invite Jamie Michaels to give us the chat. Jamie, what we're looking to try and find out from you is, you've gone through the process, you're currently in the middle of your season. How was the recruitment process this year for you in comparison to last year? Have you had a turnover of staff? Is it more, is it less? Just your thoughts on how it's gone for this season.
Sure. So we started recruiting around April, which is when, the world was going upside down. At that point, there were a lot of people out of work. So we had unprecedented number of applications. But that has really dried up. So we had a lot of backpackers who had perhaps been working in restaurants, cafes, that sort of thing, that realized this would be a great opportunity to go and do their regional work whilst being in the cities was a concern, and whilst those jobs weren't there. So it seems that a lot of the backpackers that were perhaps looking to do their days, around our area this year, instead of them, sort of stretching that out from now to then, they sort of all did a whole heap of it all at the start of the season. So we've seen a really significant drop off in applications. So we're much lower now than we would usually be at this time of the year for new applications. A lot of the guys who started, 3 months ago are all leaving now because the cafes and restaurants are opening back up. So I have some really serious concerns towards the end of this season, number one, because the number of people that are applying, I do not think we're going to be able to maintain the numbers that we require. And it sort of seems that we've exhausted, obviously we've got a fairly good network and a fairly good grapevine with all the backpackers with the numbers that we have. And it seems that everybody that needed to do their regional work or wanted to do it has already come and gone. But what is of much more concern is obviously with no new entries into the country, we have some huge concerns over whether, what sort of crop we should plant next year, because I really don't know if there's going to be anyone available in terms of backpackers to do that. They would have done their days already, and there'll be very few left. We've put really heavy focus on recruiting locals now, and really tried to adjust our HR and everything to, try to facilitate, mothers who need to work, but pick the kids up from school and all of that sort of thing. And that's brought a few extra numbers through, but certainly not certainly not what would be required to sort of run the farm sustainably at this point. So that's where it's sitting. We're now, we went from a spike where we're getting 4 times the applications to what we usually would at the start of the year. Now we're getting about 30% of the numbers applying to what we had traditionally at this time, or sort of, in this month in the last couple of years. So that's really where it's sitting at the moment. So short of, some intervention with a seasonal worker program, perhaps, because even if the borders open up, I can't see 100,000 backpackers all of a sudden getting visas and flooding their way back over here. Short of some restructure of the seasonal worker program to really facilitate more people coming in, I would believe that we would need to significantly scale back our production for next year if things continue this way.
Okay, so just to confirm, most people who started out with you have since moved on, so you've had pretty much 100% turnover.
We would have had probably around 50% to 60% turnover, because typically 60% of the people that start the season with us will just do their 3 months and then move on. And then you'll get 30-40% that actually enjoy doing the work and will stick around till the end of the season. So that sort of 60% has done their work and moved on, but replacing them now is proven to be a real challenge. We've actually got more locals now replacing them than we're finding backpackers, which in the past it used to be a ratio of 1 to 20 locals to backpackers showing up. In terms of the numbers that are actually coming now, it's almost 50-50. And that's not saying that there's more locals around. That just shows how few backpackers are now coming through.
Okay, and I mean, it's not going fantastic, but it is just working for you at the moment. But you think in a month's time, when more backpackers move on, you are going to have a shortage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've done things like, increase our rate. So, we've got packers now on piecework that are doing upwards of, $75 an hour. The fastest ones, just because we're increasing rates, because I guess what else can you do to try and, keep more people here, is to pay more. But it's also, at what point does that become unviable? So we'll scrape through the season, doing what we need to do. But what is really going to come into question is whether we can plan to put in, or what numbers can we plan to put in next year. The orders will be there, the exports will be there. That's all going to continue. But if we can't get the plants planted and the fruit picked, then there's no point. So that's the big question mark now.
Okay. I mean, obviously, we know the forward planning is obviously a big thing, and the forward planning, also with the seasonal worker program, if you were able to, for example, to access that next year, and one would hope that by March, April next year, that potentially could be viable. We may not be able to get the backpackers in because they need to show that they can support their own travels whilst they're here. However, obviously the seasonal workers are under that different scope. So, potentially, is that something that you might want to look at potentially for next year as a source of labour?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that we are looking at, but obviously, there's still investigations in and around the strawberry industry into labour hire contractors. So the seasonal worker program are not really approving workers to come into the industry, which, that's something that really needs to be addressed. And then for those, I know that there's one farm down south that's just been approved, but they applied for, they're using a contractor, but they were approved to have workers through a contractor, but they applied for 60, and I think they were allowed 18. So, in our case at Peak, we have around 400 people. And if I apply and they give me 18, well, then it's really not going to do very much.
It is generally capped at the first year. I do know that if you're applying directly, but obviously then there is the potential to utilise an existing labour hire company or a contractor to then potentially bulk up in the first year. But that is that's a regular occurrence that does happen. But I mean, if people are being approved, then that's great. Okay, so it's working at the moment, but like we've said, we do think that there's going to be an issue in a month, in 2 months, and then potentially get progressively worse because backpackers are leaving. They're either going home or they're going north or they're going east or they're just simply not staying around. So I guess, this is a big thing that we're not hearing at the moment from our growers. A lot of our growers have been telling us, it'll be fine. We'll just advertise as we normally do. And I think that's obviously one of the big things that we thought that was going to be the case. And obviously Jamie's just confirmed it for us that, we do think progressively the shortage is potentially going to get larger. So the next thing that we've got is the 3 things, potential opportunities, options that might be available for our growers. It may work for you, it may not, but we do want to make sure that everyone is aware of these assistants that are out there. So the first one we've got is Rob Hayes. Rob Hayes is with Maydeck, and they run the Harvest Trail Information Service, which is available to all growers free of charge to advertise workers. But I'll leave it over to Rob to talk to us in regards to how that service can actually assist growers in Western Australia. Morning, Rob.
Good morning, Melissa. Sorry, I'm in my car. Our builders decided to turn up today to renovate the kitchen, so one of the problems of working from home. Yes, we operate the Harvest Trail, and I'll give a plug straight away, 1800 062 332. And that's a service, it's free service, operates Australia-wide. And the aim of our service is to put workers in touch with growers who need workers and growers in touch with workers. So it works both ways, workers with growers, growers with workers. Now, I guess I'd just like to reiterate a lot of the comments that have been made. Like over the past few years, we really haven't had an issue in finding workers. In fact, we've almost always had a surplus. At the start of the first lot of COVID lockdowns this year in March, we saw a huge spike in the number of people contacting us looking for work, both backpackers and Australian residents. Now, over time, and I think it's due to there's been over 70,000 backpackers leave the country now and not replaced. I think that the fact that some of them have now got their 88 days and got a visa extended, and Queensland, coastal New South Wales, a lot of hospitality, tourism is opening up again, people are drifting back. And commensurate with that, the number of people contacting us looking for work, backpackers in particular, has gone down and continues to go down each week. We also, the spike we saw in Australian residents contacting us looking for work pretty much evaporated, excuse me, when JobKeeper and JobSeeker came along, and the appetite for Australian residents to take on horticulture work, contacting us to do that, pretty much dried up overnight, and we're yet to see that cohort coming back to us. On the other hand, we haven't, for the past couple of months, seen a significant increase in people contacting us looking for workers. Apart from labour market testing for seasonal worker program, we haven't had a lot of people contacting us looking for workers. And what we're hearing is people who have an existing workforce are basically doing all they can to keep those workers. They don't want people turning over. Probably if they've got backpackers and backpackers have got a job, they're quite happy to stay there with a secure income rather than moving on. Travelling around is more difficult than it has been in the past, and there seems to be much less turnover, much less churn than there normally would be. Regarding the seasonal worker program, I think Jamie's comments are correct, that unless there is some fairly rapid intervention to see some more of those workers into the country, and that's really the only short to medium term opportunity, I think, for us to get significant extra people into the workforce. What we're hearing is that, yes, most of the people under that program that were here 6 months ago are still here. There's only been about a 4% reduction, but we're just starting to hear that the productivity of those workers is going down a bit. They've been here now for 9, 10, 11 months. Quite a few of them want to go home. They're getting tired. So they may not be as productive as they were. And they're also being moved to different assignments and different crops. So growers using seasonal workers before would be used to getting a crew who they'd had the previous year. Yes, they might be getting seasonal workers now, but if you're a mango grower, you might be getting people who've only picked oranges before. And it takes time to skill them up, train them up, and for them to get up to speed with your crop. So it's not a like-for-like replacement. So I guess from our point of view, we would certainly like people to contact us a bit earlier, so that we can put out expressions of interest, we can contact people, we can register them and get a better feel for what the situation is going to be like in 1 or 2 months' time.
So Rob Manick has a database of workers or Australians, backpackers, whomever, that have registered with you. Is that
is
how
correct?
Right, okay. So that's a potential option. You already know that they're in Western Australia, that's confirmed?
Yes.
Right.
Now, in 2 months' time, they may not be there, but all we can do is get those people to register. We follow them up on a monthly basis to see that they are still looking and interested in that work if it becomes available. And we, obviously we would like to match those people with vacancies.
All right. So again, the Harvest Trail service is not something that's been utilised an awful lot in Western Australia, but it's there, it's available. You know, by all means, Rob, you can say the number again if you'd like to.
1800 062 332.
All right.
And that is available. Our call centre is open and from 8 till 8.
Okay, so not a lot of people do use it in Western Australia, but it's a service, it's available, it's an option. It may not specifically work for your business, but it is potentially there. Following on from the Harvest Trail Information Service is the second part of the program that's funded by the federal government is the Harvest Offices. So a new Harvest Office has just been established in the Southwest region, and that's being arranged, organised, managed by Rural Enterprises, Emma and Stuart Willis, who are joining us today. So that is a very new office, and it actually hasn't, I don't think it's quite opened yet, but it's very close to being there, and they are online, they can take calls. But that's also, it's an office based in the Southwest, so it's a very new element that's happening, but they are available as a service as well. Emma and Stuart, I'll hand it over to you.
Oh, thanks, Melissa. Yeah, welcome everybody. Just on the back of what Melissa said, yeah, we are Rural Enterprises, and we've been appointed by the government to be the Harvest Trail provider for the Southwest WA. Again, I'll plug our number as well, because we do have a number now, which is 086166 9124. So yeah, recently appointed the Harvest Trail provider, never been done before, so we're very interesting times to be the provider, but we're looking forward to the challenge. And I suppose just a little bit of a background of who Rural Enterprises are. We are a rural recruitment company that's been based in WA and established since 1958, servicing predominantly the broadacre and pastoral industries with their permanent and seasonal workers, so you know, the skilled labour required for that. But so we have got a fair bit of experience with peak periods of harvests and casual labour, working with those working holiday visa people and what have you. So yeah, regarding our service, it is a new service for the area. I suppose our geographical area, so to speak, would be those areas of Bunbury in the southwest, and Perth northeast, and also the sort of northwest areas, so that's Swan Valley, going up to the Gingin, Dandaragan areas. So that's where we can provide the service. Regarding the service itself, it's a free service to all growers. So look, on the back of what Rob said there, growers can advertise their jobs on the Harvest Trail website, their vacancies, and they can also contact us directly, and we can advertise on their behalf. And then our service is really to screen potential candidates, those Australian workers, working holiday visa people, and of course the people on income support. We can screen them to make sure they're eligible workers, and then try and fulfil those roles that are being advertised. So it's a pretty good service, and so free of charge to those employers. We are new. We are busy frantically getting our systems in place. We have got a dedicated office in the vast area of the southwest, so near that Busselton hub, and that's where we're based with Rural Enterprises as well. And this will be an office which will be a walk-in centre as well. So eligible workers can come in, directly register their details onto the government website, if not already registered, and we can do that sort of preliminary screening as well there and then. We have appointed a dedicated Harvest Trail officer, who's a fantastic lady by the name of Bernice Rousseau. She's on board with us now, and the plan is over the next few weeks and months to really get out on the road and meet growers and industry bodies, assess, you know, what their requirements and their challenges are. Jamie's highlighted quite a few there, so and really get an understanding of where we're at. And then we will be obviously busy promoting the Harvest Trail services to the growers and to workers. So I think that essentially what in a nutshell we're aiming to do. So we're up for the challenge. So expect that we'll be much more visible over the next few weeks and months as we hit the ground.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. So the Harvest Trail and the Harvest Trail Office is funded by the federal government as part of the Harvest Services. On the Western Australian front, DPIRD has been working with a Western Australian company called Studium to help with registering and job matching, and again trying to figure out where the labour source is. So I'll throw over to Stuart, and I'll get him to give you a quick rundown of how Studium works when he unmutes himself. You're still muted. There you go. Morning, Stuart.
Morning, thank you. Tech guy who can't operate tech is always a good starting point. So we originally started the Studium platform to allow employers and institutions to headhunt students and young talent. And you're able to search on a variety of things like resilience, communication, degree. So there's no more posting jobs and getting thousands of applications. You're actually able to target talent directly. And then when COVID kicked off, we had a number of agriculture students who I figured could probably be put to good use, because university students aren't likely to step back onto campus this year. And a lot of universities may not bring them back into the foreseeable future. And that sort of led to, well, hang on, we could adapt a lot of our mechanisms to assist the food and ag space. So, initially we cut up the data, the website into regions so we could lock down where people were, which then played into the travel restriction side of things. And pretty quickly we brought about 2,500 people onto the platform. So we've got just over 10,000 people in total. Most of those people would be young people and students, but that 2.5 would be travellers, backpackers, or people looking for work in the sector. The thing that we've been seeing, we've had very limited employer activity on the platform. So that has been problematic, because we are advertising and promoting jobs in ag and getting, pulling on, 100 candidates or job seekers a day. But I didn't feel particularly good about continuing to do that if we had very limited employer activity on the platform. So we've slowed down trying to bring candidates on. What we're seeing in the space, though, like, for example, I was working with a hospitality hotel yesterday and probably describe them as fairly high end, and they've got in excess of about 60 jobs. They're all really well paying, and probably of those 60, they could probably adapt at least 20 of those jobs to either traineeship or apprenticeship. So the competition for people is certainly going to be fierce. And I think if given the opportunity, a lot of those people would rather be pouring a beer than, doing piecemeal work that they've never done before in a field. So there is obviously challenges there, but I think there's always, one of the reasons we started this business was that there's always been a bit of a disconnect between industry and then schools. There's not really someone sitting in the middle trying to make those matches. So when we first kicked off, we started doing some work with dealerships, agriculture dealerships, and probably uncovered about 180 apprentice opportunities that they never advertised because they just didn't think there were young people out there looking for that type of work. So I'm in Bunbury today talking to a couple of the high schools about some of these opportunities that are there and seeing if we can plug those. The other thing is, how do we get creative? So we did a similar partnership with the disability services sector, where they can mobilise teams of people with disabilities, some of which are quite mild, but who would like nothing more than to work in agriculture doing some of the more labour-based work. And there's a lot of support that comes with that. So we're in a position where we can help facilitate some of those conversations. We're actively promoting opportunities that Muresk are offering. So we'll promote to our database the trainings that is available, and then we're trying to direct all of those people to rural enterprises who can then do the placement of them. But we're also here to help if you've got roles you need filled. We're sort of engaged to help some of that job matching and using the tool. But the platform, once you wrap your head around it, is actually quite straightforward to use. You can just plug in requirements and it'll return skill sets to you. I will warn everyone, don't dive in there and plug in diesel mechanic or some of the highly skilled roles, because there's shortages that have been around forever. But if you're looking for sort of some of the unskilled opportunities, there's a lot of people in there who've put their hand up to do these things. Now, the other problem is, we started in March and we brought a lot of people on. those people have either moved on, or when I say moved on, they may not be in the location they say they are at the moment, but there hasn't been a lot of activity on the platform. So by contacting these people, we've sort of been able to gin up a little bit more interest in what's going on. But it's a free platform. It's way easier than posting ads on Seek and sifting through thousands of job applications. If you've got labour hire businesses that work for you to find staff, they can use the platform as well. In fact, it's a pretty good opportunity for them because they don't have to pay any money to find the people, but then they could charge them on at the same price. So the platform is really geared to service any type of employer or employment agency to get to people sooner rather than later and efficiently. And as I said, you just don't have to scrape through the resumes and those types of things. So you can chat to them directly through the platform. More than happy to give people a crash course on how to use it. I'm more than happy to set people up on the platform if you want to reach out to me. Like we're actually sort of I started my career in recruitment, so I don't necessarily want to get back into it, but more than happy to help you out, setting things up and helping you to promote roles and opportunities and those types of things. And I think once we've had people jump in and start using it, they're like, oh, I don't really want to go back to advertising roles anymore. So it's a way of screening the often huge volume of people that may be coming your way. So there's plenty of solutions. As I said, I think there's some opportunity in the disability space if you're open to the support and the some of the funding that comes with that. But we just need to start getting creative as well. That's the other piece.
Thanks, Stuart. Did you want to give your email address or phone number that they can contact you on, or website?
So the website's www.studium.work, and my email address is Stuart, Stuart.Scott, SCOTT, @studium.work.
Okay. We'll include all of these out at the end. Diana's from Carnarvon's asked for the stats, so we'll include all of the details of everyone's in that email when we send that out later on today. A couple of questions that have come through on the chat have actually been in regards to the seasonal worker program. And I can see there's about 5 or 6 people who currently do use the seasonal worker program on the webinar. I obviously do know that there's a couple of people from the department who is with us. Tracy, did you want to happen to say anything? There's a few people asking about changeover of seasonal workers. I'm happy to do it later if you'd like, or if you'd like the opportunity.
No, I'm happy to have a chat. Hopefully you can hear me. Sometimes we have some issues, but you gotta love it. I did see a comment come up about the seasonal worker program, and importantly, I want everyone to know it already is demand driven. So if there is demand for workers to come and the international borders are open, then you can go through the existing approved employers and get workers, so through a labour hire or another thing. It is a Pacific Aid program, so anybody that wants to become an approved employer can do so, but they need to go through the approval process. So, and it is capped initially because there's so many things that need to be looked after for the welfare and well-being of these vulnerable workers. Was there something specific that people were looking for about the seasonal worker program?
In regards to the potential changeover, like as Rob happened to mention, some of the productivity has dropped in regards to the workers having been here for so long and normally would have gone home in this period and obviously then had a changeover. I can see our friends from Newtons are on board. Their workers would have normally gone home now and they would have had a changeover of crew. That's, I guess, the type of thing. And is there any discussions happening in regards to getting more workers in?
It's the Prime Minister's decision to open the international borders. That's not something that I can comment on. In relation to the workers that are here, I'm not getting reports of low productivity amongst those workers. If anything, I'm getting reports of other employers wanting to engage them because their productivity is good. But it is really important to remember as well that the current labour market looks a little different than it used to look. So there are probably Australians that are more willing to engage in roles that they may not have been as interested in before. All growers and employers are encouraged to think things a little differently, to look at what's available and how you can engage with local markets and meet your labour needs that way.
So that, I mean, we do obviously need to start thinking potentially, dare I say, outside of the punnet. At this particular time, it does look like we're not going to get any new backpackers in for a while. We're potentially not going to be able to get any more seasonal workers in for a while. Obviously, it depends on how you know, on how things are going. So I guess we kind of need to try and think about ways to utilise what we've currently got. So like we said, with Stuart, potentially utilising students or even those people, potentially people with disabilities. I think someone did make a comment earlier in regards to Australians not applying for jobs because there's always been the assumption that their work ethic is low or their productivity is low. I'm not quite sure how growers are feeling about that in regards. Is it better to have someone who might be a little bit slower, or is it better not to have someone at all?
If I could just jump in there, I'd encourage all of them to identify what needs they're looking for in potential candidates, talk to the harvest trail provider, see if there can be any skills that we can equip those people with that make them more job ready, more what they're looking for, and work with the services that are available free of charge to them.
And there are those couple of different services from the federal level and also from the state level as well. I can see that we are now getting on to obviously about 25 to 11. I do appreciate some people need to go. I have heard of some other things that people are looking to do. One of the things I've heard, I can see they're on the line, is, for example, to encourage their workers to stay a little bit longer, potentially looking at, dare I say, a few bonuses on top of what they're currently earning. The other option or thought process that we also had in regards to this was farmers working with farmers. So if we've got crops happening currently in Mylap and we know that a similar property is coming up, for example, in Carnarvon, potentially working together so that workers will go from one to the other. That potentially could give some security to the backpackers so they know where their next job might be coming, rather than just, oh, this job's finished, I might go for a drive down to Manjimup, to then realise that there's no jobs in Manjimup. And that seems to be one of the things that we've seen recently, is there's been a few gluts in a few different areas, and then all of a sudden people have heard that there's a few jobs up here, so a few people go that way. If they know, for example, that this farmer, let's pick one, let's go with the giblets at Newton's. If you've got some backpackers and you know that more jobs are coming up, for example, in Mora, there could be some connections through from farmer to farmer talking about workers. I know the seasonal worker program already does that in regards to workers, but is there something that we could look at in regards to backpackers, farmers working with farmers to move backpackers along the same lines, as an example? You know, people, what are we going to encourage our backpackers in order to stay? Is there any other suggestions from the floor? I'm happy to open it up to the floor if people would actually like to talk.
Look, I'll just say one thing quickly, Melissa. That's exactly what the Harvest Trail is set up to do.
Okay, awesome.
But we can't coordinate and move people around unless growers contact us and notify us that they have some vacancies. You know, yes, we have people contacting us, we register them, we're keen to work with them and move them around, but if people in various areas don't contact us, flagging, foreshadowing vacancies that are coming up, it makes it hard for us to fill that role. And you know, we work with other Harvest Trail service providers in WA, and we'll briefly mention there is one in Kununurra as well, which is the job shop, and in other states. So, you know, we can work within WA, we can work outside WA, depending on what happens with borders. You know, hopefully it will become easier for people to move in and out of states, and that's our role. So, but it only works if both growers and workers contact us, and then we can put people in touch with each other, advise them to move, go north, go south. That's where work is likely to be.
So Andrew from the job shop has just happened to say that they're looking at utilising some of the refugees based in Darwin for the mango season. have you had, Andrew, have you had any success with any Perth refugee groups or?
Hi everyone. I haven't tried Perth because our pressing needs are in Darwin right now, and in anticipation of the mango harvest. But the organisation that we first started talking to were pretty disorganised, but we've got a short list of about 63 that we're going to go through and see whether we can. Some of those have got no real English skills. Some are better than others. It sounds like it's going to be very similar to the selection of the seasonal workers, but yeah, that's another avenue. We also put a expression of interest, just so you know, for all the other attendees. We've had the Harvest Labour Service contract in Kununurra since 2006, and in the Northern Territory since 2015, and now we're delivering the service to the Kimberley from Catherine. So that's our background, but we've also had extensive employment, operated as an employment agency for backpackers in hospitality, broadacre cropping, and predominantly based in WA. So Emma and Stuart, I wish you well with your endeavours with the Harvest Trail Service. I can happily hook up with you to share some notes. I know how hard it is to get that service up and running off the ground. It's certainly not easy, but happy to share some information if you like. But so we use our website, and I was really interested to hear your presentation, Stuart. I'm going to have a look at your website. We place all our vacancies on our website, and a lot of them on our Facebook page, where we've got a pretty good following. So expressions of interest for mango harvest, 7% of the people that expressed their interest were Australian. 10%, and 7% were in the Northern Territory. So yeah, everyone's conscious of the ideal scenario is to try and offer work to Australians and get them into work, but the reality is we're not going to fill what we need with Australians, especially while the government's still funding them to stay home. So look at refugee organisations, and happy for you to share information on our Facebook page, because there's about 17 or 18,000 backpackers predominantly on there. But yeah, it's just going to be a matter of, and certainly utilise Rob Hayes and the National Trail Information Service. We've had a great relationship with them over the years, and we're just about to mount a campaign to attract people up to the Northern Territory for mangoes. So
I think most of the jobs that were advertised on the Harvest Trail at the moment are for mangoes. The Territory is about 550 jobs out there, and I think you've got about 350 of them advertised, Andrew.
Yeah, well, that's what we're looking for, and just getting back to what we've been working on a lot behind the scenes is we're encouraging the government to look at options to bring more seasonal workers in. We need more fresh workers to come in. We've got the guys and the women that normally come in for mangoes. They've been sitting at home all year in Vanuatu predominantly, and they're relying on this harvest like they do every year for their main source of income. So those of you that are involved in the seasonal worker program, I encourage you to make as much noise as you can to the Approved Employees Association, to government, to look at exploring options to bring these people in. We're going to run out of seasonal workers. We're going to run out of backpackers, and we certainly haven't got enough Australians to pick the fruit. And that's Australia-wide, not just in WA or the Northern Territory.
All right, a question that was raised just here from Doriana in Carnarvon is federal government support, or in potentially state government, we won't just put it on the feds, in regards to supporting workers moving from metro areas to take up roles in the regions. I don't even think last year, when they had the seasonal work program trial in regards to the $5,000 that they could earn before, that there was much support. I know that there's a little bit. Tracy, is there anything that new that's kind of come around in regards to support for that?
Yeah, once again, I just want to reiterate that we can provide support through the Harvest Trail services and the information services that have been spoken about today, reaching out, engaging with people that are looking for work, and then making it happen with our help.
Okay, I think we just lost you there for a minute. That's fine.
Melissa, we talked about this at a meeting yesterday, a discussion about offering incentive for Australian workers, and also offering incentives to growers to take in Australians. So we felt that that's what we need to do to, growers have had, this is a generalisation, but it's across the board that growers have had a lot of bad experiences with Australians, and a lot of Australians don't want to go and do the work. So how do we get those Australians, incentivise them to go out, to travel out, to go and live in a different location? And we came up with a rough figure that we're working on, and that's going to go to the federal government this week. And also an incentive for the grower to say, righto, if you take on this person and they stay for X number of weeks, you'll get this payment. It's very similar to the job active model. What is unique about it is offering the incentive to the employee. They tried it with the Swift last year, the seasonal worker incentive trial, which didn't really have much success at all. But yeah, times are certainly different, so we'll see.
I mean, I guess you're right. We'll see what happens come September when those payments drop again, and when some people are found not to be eligible. And Doriana, yes, you absolutely may speak.
Thanks, Melissa. Yeah, just on that question, I guess the issue is if I have a family in Perth and I have a home and a mortgage, then I'm less able to just up sticks, move to Carnarvon to do the mango season for 6 weeks, because I would have to find accommodation, potentially take my tent or go to the caravan park. But most growers don't provide accommodation, which is why the backpacker thing works so well. So as an incentive, if I was in Perth unemployed and I was able to get reimbursed for, say, my travel to Carnarvon and some accommodation subsidy to allow me to stay in a backpackers or the caravan park for 6 weeks, that would make it a lot more attractive, I guess, for that unemployed person to say, I'll give it a go, I'll go to Carnarvon, I'll do a 6 weeks mango season. So really that's the incentives that I was talking about. So Andrew's point there about those sorts of incentives would be, I think, what's going to be required, because we haven't seen the data, but I don't believe that the majority of the unemployed people we have in Western Australia are located in the regions where the work is.
Yeah, and that's always been a bit of a concern, even on the eastern states where there are more regions. Somewhere like Mildura, I think they're offering that. People coming from Sydney, it's too far for them to travel. Excuse me, just in one day, but also to have those 2 expenses as well. So sorry about that. Di Fisher, congratulations on the new job. And she's just popped her details up there. Di's the new industry engagement manager for the Southwest TAFE. So she's also talking about what skills potentially are available, or what skills employers are looking for in order to have Australian local access done through the TAFE. So we'll add those details onto the email that we send at the end. So if anyone does have any suggestions. And Tracy's done a quick comment. All right, I will leave that from there. Now, is there anyone else who would like to say anything? I will open the floor. Nadia or Katie, from your industry perspectives. We have a negative. I guess one of the big things, we have been talking about this for obviously, I don't say quite a while, but we obviously need to look at all aspects. If you're getting Australians apply, okay, you may have had bad experiences with Australians, but are they now a little bit more on the desperate side due to the funding situations, due to their job situations? I was talking to a grower through the week, and they were actually finding that backpackers were asking for jobs, but as soon as they found out that it was a piece rate, they hung up and were looking elsewhere. Not sure if that's applicable to all industries, but that was something that I did happen to come across. Mia, did you have some questions? You happened to mention that you did. Unmute, Mia. Mia, unmute.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Yeah, okay. Now, I heard Tracy said before that, you know, we have got seasonal workers and they have been with us since November, and a lot of them now getting tired on the work that they're doing, and they really want to go home. They can't go home, obviously, because the border's not open, and we see that they miss their families, and yes, they do work hard, but yeah, they really need to open that border to either East Timor or Vanuatu, so that we can get some more workers.
Okay. And Harvey, I know you've obviously got Tongans that have kind of moved on from you. How were they coping at the end of their stay before they moved on?
No, we haven't had any that have moved on yet.
Harvey has from Newton's. Sorry, Mia.
Sorry.
Hi, it's Nick Giblet here, Harvey's daughter, sitting with Harvey. So we were fortunate to secure more work for our guys up in Moora. Unfortunately, that's left us with no one to complete our winter seasonal work, because due to their cultural considerations, they needed to travel as a whole group, so we couldn't split them and retain the guys that we needed and send the ones that we couldn't afford to keep on for the whole winter. Additionally, the skill set is, obviously when we do get them back, the skill set is contrary to this time of year. We've normally got our winter crew in now who are experienced with the winter pruning. It's still the harvest crew here. Yes, they're tired. Yes, they're missing their families. It's a massive concern. We want them back home. And we're also really concerned for our winter crew who are over there now with no work for this year. And I know Job Shop and everyone's doing everything they can, but the duty of care the pastoral care is a massive concern, as well as the contrary skill set.
Yeah. And yes. I guess that's kind of what we're hearing. Andrew, would you have the same?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what's happening around Australia, and it reiterates what Rob was saying initially, that there is fatigue, there is a whole lot of behavioural issues that are happening amongst the seasonal workers around the country. They're tired, they want to go home. Many of them have been for a year, and I think it's a good lesson in when the seasonal worker program was extended from 6 months to 9 months. There was some talk that 9 months might have been a bit too long, and for some crops, I'm sure. But to me, it reaffirms my view that 6 months is a good period for them to work. 6 to 7 months, and then they go home, they freshen up, and then they come back. So, but I'm very nervous and concerned about if these humanitarian flights go back, once the borders open, you ask your cohort of seasonal workers who wants to go home, and a lot of them could put their hand up and say, we want to go home. And that's going to have a huge impact on horticulture around the country.
Shane, I know you've got quite a number of workers up at the moment, obviously, at Citrus. How are they going up there with not having been able to get home? Because most of those have been redeployed to you.
Hi, Melissa. Yeah, look, similarly to what everybody else has been saying, and we've got mixed groups. Some of them are very keen to work and working really hard. Others that have been here a bit longer are really, pretty keen to go home. So we've got a bit of a mixture. I think we've got about 4 different groups, and they're all in various stages of anxiety about going home. But yeah, it's a shame. I'll just let Harvey know that he's not getting those workers back next year. So, But look, we're the same, and look, we're really worried about the months ahead. We've got stone fruit and other things coming on, so pretty much just in line with what everyone else has been saying. So,
okay,
you know,
so coming up,
concerned about next year. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, all right. So I'm going to guess that Sue is not getting her workers back either then, anytime soon. All right. So look, I mean, one of the big things obviously that I've done over the last few months is redeploy a lot of the seasonal workers. So we've got about 550 in the state at the moment. Most of them, obviously, they do have work, and if there is any free, it does look like they're going to head towards the NT, because there will be obviously a massive shortage up there, and I've been threatened with dire stuff should I keep any here in Western Australia. But you know, there are you know, other employers that obviously are also looking for seasonal workers who would have normally had their workers come in April or May or June, you know, and then obviously we do have the changeover. Look, I guess the big thing, the Northern Territory is heavily lobbying the federal government to obviously get a group in. There have been some discussions, you know, at different levels. You know, it is a potential labour source. It could be a potential way to increase numbers quickly under the seasonal worker program, because they are potentially closely available. But like Tracy has said, it obviously is up to the federal government. And there are some concerns in regards obviously to the virus and bringing workers in. But I think we do also need to appreciate that some of these guys have been away from home for, you know, 9 months, 12 months. And some of them are now, you know, starting to, I won't say play up, but are starting to suffer a little bit, and some of their attitudes may not be what they would have been right at the start. But even some of the backpackers we found, they are, you know, exceedingly stressed as well, because some of their home countries have been really impacted by the virus. Obviously the Pacific's been quite lucky in that respect. So, you know, maybe there is that little bit of patience on both sides. But so we've got, obviously what we've talked about today is potential options, incentives for people to stay, you know, the Harvest Trail Information Service and the New Harvest Office. They're, you know, options available for all employers, and Studium as well. You know, they're all services free, that's not just set up for this cause, but for everything. You know, they're available year round. Studium obviously is specific to COVID, but the big thing we wanted to make sure everyone knew about today was that they're there, they're available. If you do need that, an extra way to advertise or an extra way to try and find staff, you know, we have found that not everyone knows about the studio, not everyone knows about the Harvest Trail, and also the new office is very new down in Bass, so we wanted to make sure that everyone does know about that. Just go back to the chat now. There's nothing more on there at the moment. So Diana has asked for basically all of the information that we've provided today, but the contact phone numbers and the details in regards to the Harvest Trail and the office in Bass and also Studium. We'll send out a bit of a note this afternoon, just obviously what's discussed. I guess if anyone's found, excuse me, any more bright ideas that they've found or they've heard over the last, dare I say, couple of months in regards to finding labour or keeping labour, is there any, I read somewhere that people were advertising to make it a family lunch day, to go and pick strawberries as a family lunch day and then go and have a picnic in the orchard as well. Jamie, thoughts on that? May not quote. No, I didn't think so.
I won't unmute for that one.
Yes, didn't think so. I mean, we know that there's been some really out of the ordinary things come out there, but I guess, you know, part of this conversation we're having today is just to start that process. That we do think that, well, dare I say, we now know from the information from Jamie and from other people who have spoken today that there potentially will be a problem in 2, 3, 4 months. You know, and we need to start that conversation, you know, with everyone, dare I say, the federal government, our state government, and also the other growers that are around in the areas as well, just to dare I say, start to think about that. A big thing that I was told this morning is obviously a lot of people do know and work in with the backpackers in their local regions. I know Tall Timbers, for example, in Manjimup, we'll give them a bit of a plug this afternoon. They're, you know, constantly saying that they're looking for work. The Food, Fibre and Timber Industry Training Council. So there's also some details in regards to that. There's some notes focused on skilled workforce, also gathering information about the impact of COVID. Kay's just sent that through. So, you know, working with the backpackers potentially in the local towns as well. They seem to be a good source of numbers and supply, you know, whether or not, and grey nomads as well. So that's another potential. I actually hadn't really considered the grey nomads. But that's definitely something. Is there any value in advertising through the media for job seekers in Australia at this stage? So Nadia, well, I guess, I think, was it Prince Charles in England that advertised for workers for British to come out and pick, and I don't think it went down that well. However, you know, and I know that they did have a reasonable amount of success. Andrew, last year, the sweetest
job. Yeah, it was a good idea. It just didn't have any. It just didn't take off. You know, it's like some great graphics and video, and but it just didn't work. And I think my thoughts are that it's easy to go too early with your requests, and you got to get your timing right, because you need to have enough time to get your workforce, but you don't want to delay the employees. You need to lure them in, and then you want them to start work. You don't want them hanging for a week or a week and a half and wondering whether there's any work there. And that's when it just starts going downhill. So timing's everything. I think that's probably one of the most important things.
And you're probably a bit early at the moment for mangoes.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's the right time at the moment for strawberries in Bullsbrook and for citrus, you know, around the Moora area. But, you know, give it a couple of months and you're right, it will be pruning in apples down south. So,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I agree. People, I know there's about 1,800 people registered on the Studium website that came through at the time, but obviously most of them, they actually had to tick where they were at the time when regional restrictions were in, and we knew where they were approximately, so we could make arrangements. So, you know, do we suggest that we need the regions locked off again so that we keep the workers? Oh, sorry, Jason, you're pruning apples now. Oh, that's right, you are too. Sorry, got that wrong. Sorry, Nadia. But yeah, and then looking for, you know, further on, and then going in, well, I thought they were picking now, but that's right. I'm silly. That's why I work in vegetables and not apples. So who else have we got? Can the consensus of concern and the issues raised today be consolidated through to the state and federal governments to add to the national concern for support on labour assistance? Look, we'll be sending a briefing note through to our Minister for certain, and obviously we do have representatives on board here in regards to the Federal Department of Education, Skills and Employment. Obviously, they've obviously heard what we've been saying here. And then yes, so through our Minister, that information will then go through the Federal Agricultural Minister as well. So, you know, definitely something that our Minister is very much aware of, and, you know, is aware that there will be a problem come sooner and later, and does want to support as much as possible. So we certainly do have that backing of the state government, and then that will send through. Who wrote a really long one, which is good, I like that. Diana Fisher. Diana, you've just started up with the Southwest TAFE. Did you want to have a quick word about what you're doing down there at the TAFE at the moment?
Yeah, good morning there, Melissa. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Di.
Okay, excellent. Good morning, everyone. I have just started at South Regional TAFE, and I've come in this primarily with my new role to identify where there might be some skills gaps where registered training organisations such as South Regional TAFE could jump in and assist in that space. But it's interesting holding these discussions, because I held quite a few of these discussions while I was assisting within DPIRD in the previous role with horticulture, but also with the South West Development Commission during COVID with the working holiday makers and getting them into jobs where they were needed. But talking to the grains industry as well at the moment, they've got the exact same issue, extreme shortage of the workforce. They normally get all of their drivers for harvest from the UK. They can't get them this season. And they're believing that there's going to be a massive shortage of competent machinery operators. When they're talking about $500,000 machines minimum, they don't want someone who's unskilled to go in and drive them. So I'm actually starting to see there's a real picture here that COVID's forced us to rethink the workforce. What we've done previously has worked really well with the working holiday makers and the seasonal workers program and the Pacific Labour Scheme, as well as utilising our locals. But a lot of the locals want permanent jobs. We can't offer the permanent jobs in horticulture or agriculture. A lot of our workforce is seasonal, and that's across the board. So maybe we need to start rethinking our entire sector across the whole state and start identifying how we could operate like the mining sector. And as the people get their skills, they might work 3 months over in the grains industry driving the tractors. They might then work 3 months pruning grapevines, and they might then go up and harvest mangoes or citrus. I know it's a diverse skill set there, but if there's jobs, and I don't know how this would operate or work, but if we could actually being able to transition them just like we do all of the working holiday makers, and 2 weeks on, 1 week off. I don't know how it would work, but just trying to shift the workforce where the job need is. So it's just a conversation for the future.
Okay. All right. So look, I know everyone does have other things to head off with today. I guess this is just the start of our conversation. Obviously, we do think it's going to get progressively worse. All I can discuss is utilise the services that are currently available. Those that are looking with the seasonal workers, through the Approved Employees Association, through the department, express your concerns in regards to the welfare of the workers, because we do know that that's important. And then we'll send through this afternoon a bit of a note in regards to this, but also this will also be through our e-news, and then it will also be through our Facebook page, and our co-host will also put it through their pages as well. So we'll have a link through, plus all the details in regards to our service providers as potential options. Feel free to share. My details will also be on there if you do happen to need a discussion in regards to Labour. Dare I say, and we've heard it all again, we are all in this together. We are potentially going to have to cooperate across industry sectors in order to look at the workers. I'd like some strawberries in my supermarket, please. And in a couple of months, I also want some apples as well. So, if we can obviously share labour, if we can work together from farm to farm, as the seasonal worker employers do, then, maybe that will help different cooperation along the side. So, we do have the support of our state government. Minister McTiernan is very much aware of a lot of the issues that are happening. And obviously, as Tracy has said, so is the federal government as well. So we do think it's going to be a problem. How deep that problem will be is obviously something that's still yet to come. So we'll leave it from there. If there is anything else significant, please, by all means, let us know. We do send out an e-news every Friday from vegetablesWA. So, something significant, we can add the details on through to there. Thank you very much.